Hello everybody, Nice back here again, and today we've got another inbox review, and we're going to be looking at Takom's FV432 Mark II. This has got an interior as well, so it's a very comprehensive model. Now, one of these is what not one of these, we had a squadron of these when I was out in 7 Brigade, 207 Signal Squadron. And I worked on the radio sort of side of things, you know, the ptarmigan, Klansman, doing all the cabling, all the 7 quad cables that used to go up in something very similar to this, okay? And we had cages on the back, not as nice as this. Ours were a bit more boxier, that we used to put all the tents in for the compounds. And I got to drive one of these from time to time. Okay, I tend to work on them not so much as part of the deck, but part of the tech section. Okay, so I worked on around these and the line section. All right, so without further ado, what I'll do, I'll put you on the overhead and we'll get cracking. So we start off with the instruction manual. It's the first time I've seen anything by Takom. Okay, and there we've got a nice side-on shot of the 432. Moving on, we've then got our colour call-outs in ammo MiG. Okay, so we've got the Berlin markings, so this square block, and the Royal Scots 7th Armoured Brigade. Okay, so the Royal Scots wouldn't have been there when I was there, I don't think. I can't remember off the top of my head. But this would be a Gulf marking by the looks of it. Okay, ours wore the green and black camo when I was out there and when we deployed to Kosovo as well. Okay, but once you chip the paint, you could see the underneath colours, and there was the desert pink and this type of colour on there. All right, then we've got the obligatory caution and how to apply decals and all that sort of stuff before we move on to the sprue map, okay, which you can see just there. So quite a few sprues, and then we move straight on to the actual vehicle itself. And we start with the lower hull. Before then we see the actual seats going inside, because this was an armoured personnel carrier, so it could transport, I think it was 12 guys plus the commander and driver. For us, when we did ours were all full up with radio equipment. Okay, so you can see this radio equipment going in here. We tend to have quite a bit more sometimes. Okay, so we might have one row of seats, and on this side might be maps or radios or whatever. Then we had the ptarmigan wagon, the radio relay, and they again had more equipment dotted about inside these vehicles. We then move on to looking at the actual seat, and this is the driver's seat with the tillers. Okay, the Bulldog, the later version, I think has a steering wheel, but they didn't come about until way after I left the army. We then got this bulkhead. Okay, so in this section here is where the engine goes. Okay, we've got the bulkhead that separates that from the driver's compartment, which you can see just here, and then above that you've got your commander's seat as well. Okay, so your driver and your commander. All right, we've got some more bulkheads going in around the vehicle. You can see here the seat all stowed. More often than not, you would see the commander actually stood up in his hatch, so this would be stowed away, and that would only be open and used when all the hatches were closed. So on the other side, again, you can see more seats going on. Like I said, 9 times out of 10 in our vehicles, we wouldn't have that. We'd have some sort of maps or other equipment or storage or whatever over this side. We've then got the side bulkhead and the rear bulkhead going on. Okay, as you can see just there. Some more boxes, some storage boxes going on the back. We would have all sorts of odds and sods in there. Before then, we're moving on to the actual what are they called? can't remember what they're called, the road wheel suspension. Okay, you get this part here, and I think that's to help line everything up, and I think to help line up for the tracks, which we'll have a look at in a minute. Okay, so yeah, you can see there you've got them all lined up correctly, and then we start looking at building the sprocket and the drive wheels for putting on the other side of the actual suspension. Well, then we're moving on to the tracks, okay, which is not length on length. It looks like it's actually length. Well, it is length on length. It's length part. I don't know what it's properly called. Before we go on to a towing eye, putting the actual tracks onto the vehicle, okay. Again, we've got our flaps going on, okay. Then we've got moving on to the upper hull, just here, putting some parts in there. The rear door with the fire extinguishers on the rear door that opens outwards. Spades, shovels, all putting on there. And all little bits of odds and sods. We've got the hatches going on, so that's a driver's hatch. We've got then the main hatch here. So this main hatch here can be changed out. It can be used to put, I've seen these with turrets on. I've seen these open, but we didn't tend to have open because we tend to have a cage on the top. So this vehicle was used from loads of different variants. So you'd have the Remy variant, you'd have the Engineers variant, and so forth and so on, and they could have whatever they wanted in there. So that's the main hatch. We then got the louvers that go over the engine, and a lot of the guys, they used to set up their bivy bags and their sleeping bags on top of these because obviously it'd be nice and warm. Then we've got the commander's hatch going on. As you can see, we've got the Jimpy general purpose machine gun that goes into there. We've then got the engine cover. So in there, you'll have a cover there that goes into where the engine is, so you can see what's happening. The lights going on, okay, onto the forward part of the bulkhead, which then goes on, and as you can see, there is no engine. There's the interior for the rest, but no engine. Before then, we look at putting on some more panels, some more for the exhaust, tow ropes, and all that sort of stuff going on. Before then, we start building the cage. Like I said, the cage we had for our vehicles stretched all the way across and all the way back like that, and they were more or less straight, about the same sort of height. But that's where we put our cam netting, our Bergens would go in there, our cover for the vehicle, we'd have tents in there, and out the back here we had 2 tent poles that came out with a triangle on the top. So when we pulled it out, we could build a tent, and we could build these to make the compound for the brigadier to be able to use to be able to direct the battle group. We've then got inside here, we've got the colour callouts for the actual vehicle inside. As you can see, looks like it's looking from the, as if you're sitting down, up to the roof. Okay, and again, painting and marking guide. So this one, unknown unit. So this is how our vehicle would have been painted up, okay, for 7th Armoury Brigade. But we had a Desert Rat on the sides just there, and on the forward plate. And then we've got OPFOR, okay, and that's a 2-tone camo just there. And then we've got some more of the interior, and this would get absolutely filthy. It get chipped to hell, and you know, after every exercise or deployment, we would have to then get in and get a good clean, but we wouldn't repaint it. Same with the actual vehicle itself. We wouldn't necessarily repaint it a lot. We'd tend to try and fix what we could, and once it got too bad chipping, then we started looking at repainting. So moving on to the plastic sprues. Okay, so the first one up is sprue G. Okay, and this has got some of the bulkheads on, some fire extinguishers, and some other odds and sods all on there. Okay, and looking at it straight off, there's some nice recessed detail in here, some nice texture where the texture needs to be, some the non-slip plating, we've got the fire extinguishers and some other bits and pieces, and it looks really, really nice. Okay, turn it over. There's nothing on this back side really, apart from this section here. We've got some wiring and what have you going on. Next up is a sprue of tracks. So sprue of tracks, and we've got the pads and the tracks all in one, and we've got individual links for going round the actual wheels, and they look really, really nice. We have a few little parts that made ejection pin marks. Look, one, balance for it, one, every third one you've got ejection pin marks to have a look at and get rid of, and that's on or more. They're not massively prominent, but once you get some paint on where they probably will. So you probably want a little chisel, and same on every single one of these, there are 2 pin marks. Next sprue is sprue E. I can find out how to get into it. There we are. Okay, so here we are. We've got some of the louvers, the rear plate and the door. Parts of the, I don't know whether that's going to be the rear part, the rear or the front part of like the side skirts. Some detail on the inside of the door, though that is a real issue just there and there that you're going to have to get rid of. Luckily, there's plenty of room around it to get a sanding stick or something in there to be able to get rid of that. That's a little bit of a disappointment, but being modelers, we should be able to deal with that. But again, some nice recessed detail, some nice raised rivets of everything, and it looks all okay. Next bag has got 2 of the identical sprues in, so I will only get one out if it will allow me. Okay, so let's put that over there. So this one's sprue B, and again, this is just some little parts. Nice little tow rope there, maybe a little bit too thick. Another fire extinguisher. But again, some nice detail on there. The radios there, look. Okay, so there will be Klansman radios. And the part in the middle there, you can just see that bit there. Some of them, they would be more squarer, and that's where the crypto part would go in. They don't use Klansman no more. They were phasing it out when I was leaving, and I can't remember what they were using to fetch back in. Part of the side skirts next. So we've got some part of the exhaust, okay, the forward plate, and it be that side that faces out. Okay, we've got the side skirts running on there. You won't see, well, the sides of the vehicle, not necessarily side skirts. We have this big storage block, or what we used to do, we used to put 7 quad cable into these, or other connections for the radios. Another part of the exhaust. I can't see the end of the exhaust just there. I'm hoping the end of the exhaust goes on there and it's actually hollow. We've got the jimpy just there, and one of the whip aerials over there as well. So all new, really nice. So no flash to write home about. All looks really, really good. Next up is the upper and lower hull. So this really is quite a small vehicle. Okay, so remember this is 35th, and you can see there that that's it. Okay, so it's not a massive vehicle. All right, so in the lower hull we've got our non-slip plates in there. Not often not we put mats in there, so we'd have the ribbed rubber matting in there. But again, we've got pin marks to get rid of. Yes, they would be underneath the seat, so you might not necessarily see them, but more often than not, if you weren't, for us anyway, we'd have the seats up, and we'd only put the seats down, and maybe only the ones down here for the driver and the commander, who then would become the operators of this vehicle. Okay, the radios and all that sort of stuff. Underneath we've got some nice bow markings. These bits here, they would need getting rid of, and nothing really on the side of the actual vehicle itself. You would add all the parts on there for this. And then we've got the upper plate, and again, nothing really much. Nice smooth texture. We've got some pin, these bits here, that bit there needs to get rid of, that bit there. On the underside, again, you've got these injection marks, so you might want to get rid of those. But if you think about it, the vehicle's going to be like that, sort of like that, so you're not really going to see in there, because the opening in there and in there is not massive. That's going to be covered up halfway by the cage if you use it, and the door at the back is not that big, okay, to be able to see in. Last grey plastic sprues. Okay, again, there's two of these, so I'll just grab one out. And there we've got some of the wheels and suspension parts. Again, some nice detail in here, nice detail in the sprocket. Nice detail on the springs of the suspension. Now these used to be fair, these used to throw tracks quite regular. So it's something to be aware of, that you could quite easily do a vehicle on the side of the road with the track thrown, and then you've got the operator and the REMI and what have you one coming out to basically help get that track back on, because out in the field it was a bit of a pain, to be quite honest. We've then got our clear parts. I'm not going to take these out because there won't really be that many clear parts, because there weren't on these vehicles, though there seems quite a lot there. But some of these might be for the light at the back, lights at the front, some of the vision ports and what have you, but it looks all okay there. This is the part to help you do set all that suspension in the right place. And then we've got some photo etch for some of the grills, so that's going to be for the cage on the top, and these parts are going to be some parts for grills for the lights and stuff like that. And then we're moving on to the decals. I'm not going to take them out because there's that little there that you're not going to really have major issues with it, because you could paint some of these, okay, and then just put on the actual number plates. Okay, so that's Takom's 432. Now this was a proper workhorse of the British Army. Okay, so any sort of armoured signal squadron would have these. REMI would have these with a different sort of, maybe a a crane on it to help get engines out and stuff like that. Engineers would use these, as well as armoured personnel carriers and all that sort of stuff, for getting people into the battleground. Quite an old design, 50s, 60s design. The recent update was changing it to the Bulldog, so they're changing some of the steering, and I believe they changed some of the internal, upgraded the engine and stuff like that. But a real workhorse of the British Army. Anyway, that's the Takom 432. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next one. Bye for now.